Who is William Shakespeare? Well, William Shakespeare is one of the greatest authors of all time and was born at Stratford, United Kingdom. His actual birthday is uncertain, but most scholars believe that he was born on April 23, 1564. Although there are no birth records that existed, the church indicated that William Shakespeare was baptized at the Holy Trinity Church in Stratford. He had 7 brothers and sisters, and William was the third of 8 children. He began his education at the age 6 or 7 years old at Stratford Grammar School under the reign of King Edward VI. Although we have no record of Shakespeare attending the school, because of the position held by his father, John Shakespeare, it seems like that his father decided to educate young William at the school. Shakespeare was removed from school around the age of 13 because of his father's financial and social difficulties. Like all of the great poets and dramatists of all time, Shakespeare learned his basic reading and writing skills from an ABC or a hornbook. Latin was the primary language to study at Stratford School. Although William likely had some lessons in English, but Latin composition and the study of Latin authors like Seneca, Cicero, Ovid, and Virgil Horace was the main focus in his literary training. There is no reason whatsoever to believe that he had not acquired a firm grasp of both English and Latin and that he had continued his studies elsewhere. There are other fragmented and devious details about Shakespeare's life growing up in Stratford. He is supposed to have worked for a butcher in addition to help run his father's business. It's likely that Shakespeare wore a gold hoop earring in his left ear, a creative look in the Elizabethan and Jacobean eras. This style is evidenced in Chando's portrait, one of the most famous depictions of Shakespeare. We probably don't know how to spell Shakespeare's name correctly, but then again, neither did he. Sources from William Shakespeare's lifetime spell his last name in more than 80 different ways, ranging from Shakespeare to Shakespeare. When he was just 18, William Shakespeare came home with the news that 26-year-old Anne Hathaway was 3 months pregnant. The scandal to the family, caused by the conception of a child by a much older woman outside marriage, must have caused gossips in the community. He married Anne Hathaway on November 28, 1582. The marriage between William and Anne must have been arranged, and a special license had to be sought and issued by the Bishop of Worcester. Their first child, a daughter they named Susanna, was born on May 26, 1583. Then 2 years later, on February 2, 1585, came their twins Hamnet and Judith were born. Unfortunately, Hamnet later died of unknown causes at the age of 11. After the birth of Hamnet and Judith, there are 7 years of his life where no records existed. William Shakespeare had 2 periods of time where there was little to no reliable documentation on what happened during his life. These are known as his lost years, as they are supposedly lost to no time because there are no historical documentations. The first of these segments is from 1578 to 1582. The second segment was from 1585 to 1592. During this time, Shakespeare moved from Stratford to London. However, it isn't known if he stayed in Stratford for a while or moved straight to London then didn't do much. There is a fable that Shakespeare stole a deer from Sir Thomas Lucy at Charlotte, and instead of a prison sentence, William fled from Stratford. This is another possibility that he might be worked as an assistant schoolmaster in Lancashire. Shakespeare never actually published any of his plays. They are known today only because of his 2 fellow actors, John Hemmings and Henry Condell, recorded and published 36 of them under the name of the First Folio, which is the source of all Shakespeare's books published. A basic knowledge of the use of language and poetic form can enhance understanding the enjoyment of Shakespeare's plays. Many scholars believe that he started writing his plays in 1590 and his poems in 1592 in London. By 1594, he became a partner in one of the most prestigious theatre companies called the Lord Chamberlain's Men, where he was both the star actor and the poet. He wrote approximately 2 plays a year during his time in London and is credited with a total of 37 plays, 2 extended poems, and 154 sonnets. Shakespeare introduced almost 3,000 new words to the English language. As well as completely original words, he changed nouns into verbs and verbs into adjectives, through combining existing words in new ways as well as by adding prefixes and suffixes. Shakespeare's vocabulary was immense. It is estimated that he used more than 20,000 root words in his play, almost half of all the words then existing in English. No writer before or since has so mastered the lexicon of his or her own tongue. His play contains thousands of precise allusions. For instance, 70 trees, 75 flowers, 90 nautical terms, 125 four-footed animals, 175 birds, and 250 mythological characters. He quoted or cited from 42 books as well as over 100 literary and historical works. His play contains phrases, lines, speeches, and sometimes a whole scene in French, Welsh, Latin, and Italian. No one in his original audiences could have understood, certainly not at one hearing, all the words in his play, and his play were consequently written in that in mind. Many of the obscure and difficult words in Shakespeare were meant to be obscure and difficult. They were obscure and difficult in Shakespeare's day as well as ours. He used several forms of language in his play. They are the blank verse, the rhyme verse, and the prose. Blank verse is an unrhymed iambic pentameter used when nobles speak. Rhyme verse is used when something emotional or highly important is happening. And prose is everyday language used when the commoners are speaking. William Shakespeare's writing was based on tragedy, history, and comedy. Some of the play that he wrote was Antony and Cleopatra at 1607 to 1608. This is the story of Mark Antony, a Roman military who was madly in love with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. The second is the Coriolanus, from 1607 to 1608. The third is Hamlet, from 1600 to 1601. The play is set in Denmark and follows the Prince Hamlet, who seeks revenge upon his uncle Claudius. Claudius murdered his brother, Hamlet's father, in order to seize the throne, and also married his wife and Hamlet's mother, Gertrude. The fourth is Julius Caesar on 1599 to 1600. The life and death of Julius Caesar is one of Shakespeare's most well-known and oft-quoted plays, a classic story of loyalty, politics, murder, and intrigue with some of the greatest oratory ever written. The fifth is the King Lear, 1605 to 1606. This is the story of King Lear, an aging monarch who decides to divide his kingdom amongst his 3 daughters, according to which one recites the best declaration of love. 6 is Macbeth, 1605 to 1606. Macbeth is one of the Shakespeare's most stimulating and popular dramas. And last but not least, Romeo and Juliet, 1594 to 1595. Celebrated for the radiance of its lyric poetry, Romeo and Juliet was tremendously popular from its first performance. The sweet whispers shared by young lovers throughout the realm were often referred to as not but pure Romeo and Juliet. After a creative career as a writer and years of critical acclaim as an actor, William Shakespeare died in the city of his birthplace at Stratford, United Kingdom, on April 23, 1616. A story of a wild fiction that 18th century grave robbers stole William's skull appears to be true, says the archaeologist. His grave engraved with disturbing writing, quote, "Good friends, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones." End quotes. On his death, Shakespeare made several gifts to his various people, but left his property to his daughter Susanna. The only mention of his wife in Shakespeare's own will is, quote, "I give unto my wife my second best bed with the furniture." End quote. The furniture was the bedclothes for the bed. Did you know that scientists also found drugs in cigarette pipes of Shakespeare? Well, they did.